Hey everybody, Marnie here for another YouTube video. It's been a little while since I posted a video on here, and since today's Sunday and it's actually the solstice, I felt very inwardly inspired to make a video today. And I have to say for myself, I've been feeling very internal this last couple days, which has led to slowing down. Even though life is going fast on the outside, there's a bit of a slowing down, and there's a deep introspection on what my truths are, what my alignment is, where I'm going with Earth Heart Healing. On the back end, I've not been so visible on social media these days because I'm actually building out the Soul Growth Breakthrough Bundle program with one client who is also a longtime friend. And it's been quite a journey of breaking through barriers for both of us so far. And my biggest caution, I guess, or fear, what brings me into fear is what my alignment is. And I have touched on it in many videos here, pivoting back and forth from being like a bright, go for it energy and breaking through and learning lessons and all these things, and then getting into kind of a very cautious, very slow moving, almost stalemated kind of place within myself. And I felt today as not just a video for you guys, but also a reflection, a deeper reflection for me. I wanted to talk about some of those subjects, so I really don't have a lot of bullet points written down or in my head. I've got a few, but I really thought I could just go for it candidly today, and hopefully it brings in some insights for you guys, and I know that it's going to bring some insights for myself. So first of all, starting out, we are on the solstice today, which is the shortest day of the year and the darkest day of the year, meaning that the dark is more of the 24 hours of our day than the sun is out. It's also a moment where we're shifting from that descent back into the ascent towards the sun, which I believe is June 21st. Is it? January, February, March, April, May, June. Yeah, that's 6 months. So what this particular day of the year represents for us energetically is a time to really slow down, take a pause, acknowledge the depths of our inner nature. It's also a moment, if you feel to reflect, really introspect. And I think from that place, for me anyway, what I'm feeling is a lot of releasing. So when we get to that deepest, darkest place within ourselves, considering that we're in the year of the snake, the wood snake in the Chinese zodiac, and we're moving into the horse, the fire horse, which is all about outward movement. And I looked that one up because I haven't experienced it yet, but next year, which actually starts on February, what day does it say here? February 17th. So we still have almost 2 months of the wood snake left to shed. So just keep in mind that our calendar new year is not the same date as what the zodiac energies of the animals and the elements are going to represent. And so next year is all about movement, momentum, freedom, independence, confidence, and bold action. And so what's leading us up to that is all of this continuous shedding of our identity, of the things that no longer serve us, to bring us forward into the next year. And I'm actually gonna type that in and see what the wood snake gives me here. I mean, I know for myself personally, it's been a year of really acknowledging the disorienting feeling of letting go of outward identities and what I felt I was. I'm becoming a mother at the end of this year, end of this zodiac Chinese astrology year. So that's interesting too. Actually, it's something that I just realized when I looked up the fire horse, that my child will be born in 2026, but still we are at the very end of the wood snake. So it's almost like that shedding and letting go of identity and transformation. So it's not necessarily just the letting go. It's also revealing, right? When the snake sheds its skin, there's new skin underneath. There's a new identity underneath. And we're also in the year 9, which is a culmination of a giant cycle to move us back into, to move us and propel us into the next phase of our growth, each individually and collectively. So first, I feel to talk about we'll just let it go. We'll see how it unfolds. I'm like, which way should I go first? But there's been collective themes that have come up for me, and the resolution of them, or the solution. I live on a road, and it's like every time I make a video is actually when I notice the cars. So it's always been that way for the last while. Actually, I wonder if that will come through to be revealed. What's that's all about for me, the loud noises. I seem to always choose places to live that are on a loud street. Except for, I mean, even when I was in Costa Rica, the quads are not very quiet. So I've always wondered about that. So I guess I'm calling that in to see intuitive guidance and all of my guides and supports and my inner wisdom. What is that pattern all about? Let's see if the answer will come through. Okay, so the wood element, so the snake is wisdom and insight, intuition and inner vision, strategy and careful timing, transformation and renewal, the shedding of skin. The wood represents growth and creativity, compassion and flexibility, vision and long-term planning, new beginnings that develop gradually. Okay, so them together is thoughtful growth rather than sudden change, strategic creativity, inner vision guiding outer expansion, healing, learning, and refinement. It favors planning before acting, deep study or spiritual development, sustainable progress instead of quick wins. The shadow side of it is overthinking or secrecy, hesitation from too much analysis, avoiding action when it's time to move. Okay, so it's the time to prepare, heal, and realign. So I definitely can say that for myself, I've felt this quite a bit, and a vision has shown up from the past, an inner vision, which is myself as an angelic energy being chained to a stone. And I have to say, it's unconventional that where I live right now, this is literally an old stone wall from one of the oldest buildings in our town where I'm living right now, which is also on, I might have mentioned this in another video, but this town is existing on the 49th parallel, which is indicative of equal balance between light and dark, because it's right exactly in the middle of the equator and the North Pole. So that is a balancing of dualism, you could say, metaphorically speaking. And then the stone wall is such a vision of, such a representation for me of that vision of being chained down. Now, there's one train of thought that we're all angels as a soul. On one level, we're all beings growing and evolving. And as our higher selves, we have an angelic aspect. And yet, the more that I go into the details and nuances of awakening, as I've been shedding my skin, you could say, and really striving to find that new identity of, based on the fact that, I mean, there are some very unwavering truths, which I guess you could say are deeper than the skin being shed, which is that in this life, I'm here to help heal and support healing, and also to balance karma in myself and to support that with others. And ever since 2012, that journey has been connected to energetic healing and spiritual development. Until since COVID, I really hit into realizing that a lot of the books I was learning from come from the secret societies, and that idea that there's a Luciferian empire that holds the wisdom teachings, and that is who is disseminating the spiritual wisdom. And growing up in the Catholic Church and having such an affinity with Jesus, I have this hesitation and reservation to move into the spiritual arts in my fullness, because I have a fear of leading, not just for myself, and actually less for myself than it is for other people, but leading people in the wrong direction. And so that is basically a representation of my energy, perhaps you could say, being locked in dualism. So one of the things that I've noticed over time and in the last week, that when we're seeking answers, sometimes it's important to get information from the outside world, but ultimately, always those answers are going to come from within ourselves. And so I've been spending a lot of time this last week, consciously unplugging the internet, spending time without podcasts in my ears, and just really practicing, also because I'm going to be becoming a mother, practicing patterns and routines that feel healthy to me, to be able to raise a child in this world of over technologified spaces, and especially where I am on the planet now, in a space where kind of that turning people into less organic versions of themselves is in full swing, or so it feels to be for me, and in this place where I am. And all of it, all the resistance to the darker forces and the heavier vibrations, also in the lineage component of it all, the unconscious energies within my lineage that I only feel I touch into fully when I live close to family members. That those energies have to be embraced just as much as we embrace the light. So one thing that really tripped me up, going back to religion, is like the New Age had certain teachers at the beginning, like Doreen Virtue, for example, and she was such a prevalent voice of the New Age, which in the end is interestingly a propagation of those secret societies in, once I really got into the texts and really, saw where are some of these books coming from, they are connected to Lucifer. And so that really tripped me up. But when we move into a space of non-duality, I think the unpinning of this realization is that, first of all, the darkness can only mimic the light, right? Light is life. Light is light is life. I don't know. Is that a saying? Probably not. But you know, the sun helps everything grow, creates new life. The light is when we see form, and the shadow helps to create form, but they work together. What am I trying to say though? Is that typically speaking, I've never heard any teachings. That's actually probably something that's a good anchor point, that the darkness does not create. It destroys, and it copies until it destroys. And light creates. So if you think of, you know, for me, this idea of working in the metaphysical world, it always came with like, am I moving away from God if I'm deciding to go into the metaphysical arts? Because witches and even white magic, healing principles, all this stuff is like very condemned by the Christian sphere or network. And I've been trying to get to the root of it. And one thought that I wanted to bring up is that that person who I mentioned, you know, they were such a big voice. And usually when voices are that big, they're connected to the system. So someone switching to be connected to Jesus so strongly and does do such a pivot in that way still feels a bit external and a little bit like, why is this person's voice so much stronger than so many other people in the world? So for myself, as I continue to move forward with all of this hesitancy and wanting to decipher what the truth is and where my alignment is, especially considering I hit into like, yeah, okay, another piece is like past lives are not necessarily accepted by the Christian domain, right? And then there is a condemnation of other religions, for example, with the Indian religion and having multiple deities and saying that all those deities are demonic. And those little pills of information, they always hit me so strong. And maybe that's where the investigation really needs to go, is like, what, you know, deeper than like following Jesus or following the Bible. It's like, what God is actually being spoken to in the Bible, like these questions, like who is that being that's being spoken of? Jesus is the Son of God, but who is God? You know, there's like this need for me to get that a bit more clear. And so I still have a feeling in myself that past lives are real, and that is also indicative of what we're going to know in this life. You know, for example, if I had a past life memory of being a very nefarious being with a lot of power and a lot of insight into that system, then I'm going to know in my genetics and in my vibration that that system is very real and still very prevalent on Earth. You know, because that's an experience I lived. So we can only really know for certain the things that we've lived. And that's why there's so many different viewpoints and vantage points on this planet. And I still do fully resonate with the fact that there are beings here, souls, right? We're in human vessels, but the soul inside has had many lifetimes and not always on this planet. Another thing that I have difficulty reconciling still is the part of Christianity that doesn't really recognize the spirit of the earth and the cycles and like connects everything kind of natural and the metaphysical components of nature, even the ley lines on the planet, the energy, the way the systems move, that that is also part of God, and that the earth has a spirit and a consciousness that is also evolving. So I guess through all of this investigation, some key points to feel into for myself are, there's conflicting belief, when we can pull it back inside of ourselves finally and not use the external world for validation, that's where the solutions will come from. So if I have a conflicting belief structure that are fighting each other, right, we can also pull that back into like childhood archetypes or familial archetypes, or imbalances within us that can go into like the psychological level of things, and really pull it back into our own universe, which is our own body and our own auric field. And that's one other thing that I felt to bring up today, is that I think a solution to my dilemma might be, just because we can't see the aura doesn't mean that it's not a part of our scientific infrastructure or our human architecture, our human nature. Like, you never hear Christians say, well, if you talk about your lungs or your heart, or you go for a run, well, that's demonic. But if you do yoga and talk about chakras, that's demonic. That's a common thought form that hits me pretty hard, and I'm always like, is it though? So I just wanted to bring that to light, really, like have a counterpoint to that in earnest and in heartfulness, in good-heartedness, that there is, that no matter what you're working with, whether it's new paradigm or new age information, that's just a blanket coating, like what I was saying, where the shadow copies the light. So, somehow that information has been taken and twisted around and then given to us as being like witchery or a separate nature of what God wants us actually to work with within ourselves. Whereas my experience thus far has been that there's dualism within that realm as well, and that my first introduction to that space actually didn't come from like somebody like Doreen Virtue per se. It came more from less well-known names and individuals that are so sacred and so beyond the portal of the purity of the heart. I have been decided to read the Bible lately, and I opened it up to the back of the one that I have here, and the Beatitudes were in the back, and I actually started crying when I read some of them today, which doesn't happen to me all that often these days, but it's like one of those, I don't know if any of you out there have that aspect within your nature, like the crying, such a pure cry that it's coming from such a place of truth within you. Like it's an indication, just like people get goosebumps of like something you're hitting on. And the two that really touched me today were, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. And blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. So, all this stuff going on in my mind, I feel are coming from those places. It felt true to me. And it's such a tricky place to disseminate to others, because if the other is not yet in that space of purity, any type of explanation of what that purity feels like, or that desire to create peace, which is usually bringing up subconscious information, so that unconscious, subconscious information, so that, if we go through the individuation process, each one of us, we're going to have certain like core boundaries, core beliefs that we really do resonate with on a soul level. That makes us a human being. right? That's the embodiment principles of spiritual awakening. Transcendence means like the part where we're all one, and we move into that space of like sometimes even not caring about what's going on earth, or just moving into the really higher tones of earth, which is like, you know, the purity of nature and the blissful peacefulness of a forest or a field, you know, or being by the beach. And those are all beautiful aspects of dualism, but to really get into the work and to bring forth that inner warrior, that's been a theme as well in creating the program lately, my Soul Growth Breakthrough Bundle program. We have to accept the denser parts of Earth life reality just as much as we embrace the beauty and easefulness of the light. So I guess that's where I've kind of come to, that it's all of it, you know, that it is Jesus and it is Lucifer and it is Buddha and it is the auric field and it is the chakras and it is the body and it is the deception and it is the truth. And at the same time, this evolution of humanity, if we stay in alignment with the positive, spiritual, natural growth of human nature, which is kind of where, when I was talking about going into the spiritual arts and stepping through a portal of purity, like what we were learning was only available to the pure of heart, which is, circling back to that, hard to disseminate, because when we are in our ego, something like that, which is kind of egoless, it's an essence internally that strives for truth and authenticity and goodness, that's polarized towards goodness, to always transform life towards goodness, and is also much more powerful than the ego by its nature. When somebody is in their ego, they will perceive it as threatening, and perhaps when it's in its brightness and its lightness, its fullness, as extremely egocentric, because of its nature of actually just being very powerful in its architecture. So maybe that's why we've had to, over so many centuries, keep that brightness of the light, the inner light, hidden, you know, and to come out of that hiding is a process internally and externally, because that's also dualism, right? We can pivot from the internal and the external to work things through, you know, might change some inner architecture and then work it through in the outer world, or vice versa. Although it's been mostly my experience that it's firstly internal and secondarily external. Although we might get like insight and deeper understanding by going into the external, seeing where the problems are in relationship. Primarily it's in relationship. It's in relationship with our most immediate life around us, right? This is where we're going to find what's not in alignment. And as that light opens from the heart, now, as perhaps that's where the shedding of the skin is leading to, and moving into the year of the horse with the fire, in the movement and like success and individuation and independence. There are still some pieces internally that are fighting against each other or causing conflict or murky waters. And so I guess that's where I'm going to leave it. I don't have answers. I just have, I have one answer. And I guess the solutions come when we move past dualism, meaning that But it's not a transcendent dualism, like transcending dualism. It's integrating dualism. It's balancing duality, like my blog is titled. It's living on the 49th parallel. So sounds so extraterrestrial. It's an inner merging, an inner understanding of both light and dark in that 0 point where they merge together, in that fine line where they connect in pure truth. And so they merge. And in that merger, the dualism will still exist, but the understanding will allow us to fully embrace things without conflict. And that's the alchemy of the heart. So I guess I answered some of my own questions a little more than I realized. That if that inner alchemy is what causes peace and is a recognition of purity in the human being, the heart center, then we have to embrace the metaphysical nature of who we are as part of the goodness of God. And just like our brain can be full of love or it can be full of hatred, our emotions can be loving or full of chaos. Our inner architecture can reflect both negative and positive. And that the metaphysical world and the way we interact with it is all based on our own alignment internally and spiritually and in our human nature as well. And those guideposts are reflected through natural law and also the alignment of our spirit. So you could also consider that there are some souls that might not be human. It's my understanding and my experience thus far in the world that all human souls are polarized towards growing into the light at their deepest core. That's a human soul. That's the way the human body interfaces with a human, which is the children of Earth, the children of Mother Earth. And we were gifted when Jesus came the ability to transmute our own pain and suffering because we are also evolving as a collective. At the same time, so we are the indigenous species of this planet. When we talk about indigenous people, we're all indigenous in a way, globally, when you are a human being, considering that there are non-physical beings that have found a way to fuse with the human body. And in that way, I bring that up today because their soul nature may not be polarized towards goodness. And that's where some of the confusion can happen, because many of those more power-oriented beings have created energetic structures to copy that perpetuate narcissism and even psychopathic tendencies in our hierarchy, in our world systems. And so when we don't realize that, it's even easier to get lost and blame the other, as opposed to wanting to learn how to create more peace and understanding. And that's a lot where our mental and emotional disorders come from, right? So there's so much more to it. I could go into some of the sciencey, extraterrestrial sciencey stuff of it all, but I think for today, that is where I'm going to stop. And I will close with blessing you all from my heart to yours, a beautiful, introspective, self-reflective, transformative lineage, full of lineage healing. That's been coming up a lot for me, like old lineage pains coming through, to not take things personally, but to really connect with the energetics of everything and work with those energetics in a paradoxical, impersonal and personal at the same time type of way. I suppose the solution of it all is that once we embrace the light and the dark, once we embrace both sides of polarity, we find our way through to the other side. So I'm going to keep that principle here with me today as I continue working through some of these schisms. And yeah, I'm going to pull 3 times the charm, 3 cards for everyone, including myself, reflective of the collective energy of this moment, especially where I am on the planet, and whoever resonates with that alignment vibrationally. You could be anywhere. We're all connected in different ways on a soul level. So wherever my tribe is, whoever's in this collective group here, out there in the world, let's see what our messages are. Okay, so number 1 is from the Sacred Forest Oracle deck. So connecting with forest animals, the forest essence, we have the phoenix. Okay, how nice is that, the phoenix? So transmutation. It's a pretty good one, everyone. So transmutation happens through deep introspection, right? Deep alignment with our heart space to transmute and transform energies. Okay, at the edge of a forest rises a mountain. The journey to the top is long and arduous. The path has boulders and landslides that make it difficult to discern what lies ahead. Yet you climb knowing that something remarkable awaits you. You finally reach the top. You peer over a boulder to see a large pyre. An old, tired phoenix comes into view, his wings dragging, only to heave himself into the fire. The flames leap higher and higher. As they die down, out of the ashes arises a renewed phoenix with bright colors that outshine the sun. He looks directly at you with a fierce intensity before soaring off the mountaintop. Your life is changing, perhaps in ways that you didn't expect, but it is wildly wonderful. Transmutation is the act of changing from one state of being or element into another. The phoenix is legendary in its transmutation, for its transmutation in fire. In the flames, he is reborn, leaving behind his old and tired self to become a passionate, wild, and free bird. Something that you might have thought would never change is changing into something amazing. It's not an ending, rather, it is a bright, shiny new beginning. Situations that seem lackluster are transmuting into fabulous opportunities. Release expectations and limited thinking, for things are not as they seem. The spirit of the phoenix says, a big change is at hand in your life. What feels like an ending is really a beginning. Rising out of the flames and ashes, you are entering a new cycle. Even if life seems murky in areas, this is only the clearing before a rebirth. Hang in there. The best is yet to come. Well, it goes without saying. We kind of knew that, right? We kind of knew that. But it's really nice to get a reflection energetically. Okay, second one is Earth Magic cards. So I had my baby shower about a month ago now. Oh, well, no, a couple of weeks ago. And the theme was forest animals, the forest, and the earth. And so that's what I'm bringing forward today with some more cards here. And so, let's see. That's our card number 2, everyone. Volcano. A lot of fire. A lot of fire. It's a lot of fire. Pele, or Pele, they gave the, I'm glad they wrote that. So Pele is the goddess who lives on the big island of Hawaii, dwelling there in the craters of the active volcano Kilauea. She's considered passionate, volatile, and, wow, these words are big, capricious, and is perhaps best known of the panoply of Hawaiian deities. Since 1983, she has been sending ribbons of lava down the mountainside and into the sea, thereby creating new land. In this image, we see her subtle visage in the spewing fire of the volcano. Wow, I'm really stumbling through this, guys. In ancient Hawaiian chants, Pele is described as she who shapes the sacred land in its form from magnificent and powerful goddess being and her periodic eruptions that new earth is forming as the resulting lava merges with her sister, the goddess of the sea, Namakokahi. The volatile and unpredictable nature of volcanic eruptions is widely known. In spite of science efforts at forecasting these blow-ups, they sometimes happen without warning. Whether the eruptions are slow and steady or violent and explosive, it's an unstoppable force. In one very dramatic way, nature changes and shapes the land. This is a particularly volatile time for you. Unexpected changes, sometimes quite sudden and dramatic, are occurring in ways that you have absolutely no control over. These occurrences may be so powerful as to shake up what you formerly thought of as the foundations of your security. They may even cause you to reassess the direction of your life, the direction your life is taking, to question some of your relationships, or to reevaluate the work you have chosen. Although the events may rock your world, know that Spirit is the guiding force behind them. It is a matter of finding your trust that life knows what it is doing in the midst of these storms of change. It also requires you to make adjustments quickly and not to cling to what was, but instead move forward and welcome in your arms wide open what is yet to come. All from a place of being present in this moment. You have truly nothing to fear. Okay, well, that one is a little more intense. So it's a lot of fire, a lot of transformation. The part that stuck out for me was she who shapes the sacred land. So the people who are watching this or resonating with this, I would say that we're all pioneering new thoughts, new ways of being on the planet, and that there's a lot of movement happening towards embodying these versions of ourselves that are maybe pulling away security blankets and different things like this from our life. So yeah, this is what's going on. So I guess it's a moment to learn how to go with the flow of the fire. And lastly, I'm going to do Mother Mary cards. So one theme that has been really kind of bringing a tingle to my goosebumpy nature is this realization that the divine feminine is returning or emerging, the queen energy, you could say. And not only that the masculine is starting to starting to understand its imbalance, its brokenness, acknowledge its brokenness. Where in the feminine, we did that, I think for me anyway, like a decade and a half ago, it started to unfold. But the masculine hasn't yet caught up yet. So there's this acknowledgement that internally for me, I'm seeing it as like an acknowledgement of my inner masculine being broken and needing healing. So You know, before I pulled the Mother Mary card, I also wanted to acknowledge like that understanding of dualism, like fire's coming. Like this one is always seen as kind of a positive for me. This looks a little scary. So light and dark of the fire, right? And to embrace the change. To embrace the change. All right. Mother Mary, what do you have for us today? Our Lady of Innocence. Pretty one. Okay, as you let go of any fear of judgment, allow me to be close to you. I honor the purity of your being, which is forever untainted by any experience. There is nothing for you to fear from allowing me completely and freely into your heart. I hear your inner thoughts, feelings, and prayers. I wish for you to be completely open with me so that I can help you without restraint. Tell me even that which you are frightened to admit to yourself, and know that I will never judge you. I will only understand and teach you to love and forgive yourself, for truly you are my child always. I will never turn away from you. Nice. Without even realizing it, we can hold ourselves back. We might hide part of ourselves from others, or feel that we must put on an act, show a particular face, or be a certain way in order to be acceptable. We probably learned that this was true when we were young and have continued on without always realizing it. The oracle of Our Lady of Innocence comes to you with this message. It is time to let go of old shame and guilt and reveal more of who you are. Do not be afraid about being judged. Judgment only hurts when you make it about ourselves and agree with the judgment, rather than realizing the judgment is not truth. It is only an expression of a wound in the person who is judging. The Holy Mother comes to us with this reminder. We are innately innocent and pure of heart. She asks us to hold compassion for the mistakes we have made in our lives because we did the best we could, even if sometimes that wasn't as skillful as we would have liked. When we receive this reminder, we are much less likely to fall into the trap of judging ourselves. From that place of self-acceptance and regard, we can be open to others with acceptance and unconditional regard also. If another does judge us, we realize that this is because they cannot love themselves unconditionally. So they are unable to love anyone else in that way. We can hold a place of acceptance for them and what they are learning without being brought down by their wounding. When they realize that we still love ourselves and are not dampened by their judgments, they may wonder why and begin to heal through letting go. Or perhaps they are not ready to heal and instead become angry or sad. Our job is not to make another heal as if that were even possible, but it is to the alternative, to be the possibility of healing that can inspire others when they are ready to be inspired, and to have compassion when they cannot yet be. This is pretty good. The oracle of Our Lady of Innocence also has a message for those of us who are wanting to take a further step on the path, perhaps branching out into healing or creative self-expression, acting on new opportunities, or considering a new relationship, for example. She tells us that we are worthy. She reminds us that we do not have to fear that we are not enough and that there is nothing to hide. Even vulnerability can be powerful when accompanied by an open, self-loving, and divinely trusting heart. It is time to let go of the shaming of others, the judgment of others, and the memories of being judged and ashamed. With compassion, you can let go, even the tears and anger. Then you can choose to feel good about who you are and your life journey, including all mistakes that you have made that helped you grow into the person you are today. The Mother holds nothing against you, just loves and delights in all that you are. You have permission to do the same. Okay, guys, well, that's a lot of intensity and also a sacred embrace at the end. So I wonder if that's resonating with anyone. I'm going to reflect on this a little bit more, do some deeper meditations tonight on the solstice. I'm wishing you all personal alignment, a sense of deeper understanding, a loving embrace towards yourselves on this darkest day of the year. And with that, I'll let you go, and I will be seeing you next time.